as part of our Civic Engagement Platform for the November elections, we place emphasis on local elections, and there are a tremendous amount of good candidates that are running for office. We have today Bill Dale, who is a longtime Virginia Beach resident, longtime resident of Kempsville for the district he's running for. I've known Bill probably well over several decades. First as a priest. Bill was always involved in city council, sat on a lot of our boards and commissions, and he's a true public servant at heart. Bill, welcome to the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you for the good words. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, let's get started. Well, we have election around the corner.
Yeah.
We've got the presidential elections, Senate elections, congressional, but as you know, the most important office are these local elections that tend not to get a lot of attention, and a lot of folks don't realize how important elections are. Could you tell the voters why they should vote for you, and tell a little about yourself?
Well, I think, the first thing, and I think you're correct in saying it, the local elections, particularly the council elections, probably directly affect more people in Virginia Beach than any of the other elections that are there. There's some real significant issues that we as a city are facing and will need to face going forward. My primary concern in running for office, I really have three major concerns that are on the plate. The first, and I think it's for the next 15 to 18 months, is this coronavirus we're facing. It's having tremendous impact on education. We can see all of those debates going on. Major impact for small businesses. We've lost close to 600 small businesses in Hampton Roads since March, since this virus came out. And the restaurant industry is particularly hard hit. But the small businesses, because of social distancing, anything that relies on people has been hurt and probably will continue to be hurt. I suspect we will see more difficulties going forward. The real hard part is that the people who own these businesses, not only put their heart and soul into them, but as the last 3 months were occurring, they're putting their personal savings, and any wealth they accumulated to keep them going, that's run dry. It's going to be much more difficult for them to get up off the ground if they have to do it by themselves. That results in significant unemployment because they've had to let go of the people who are there. And then there's like a stone rolling down the hill. People unemployed are having a hard time paying rent. And they've been held off from evictions until January 1st, I believe. But when that goes away, they will still owe all of that money for the last 4 or 5 months. People are going to have trouble with mortgages. So it's a big issue that the city has to face. The second issue is the police issue. I think in this city, the perception is worse than the reality. We've got a great police department. I really appreciate being endorsed by the police in this race. And I believe it's because not only of my work with them, but also of my unfailing stance in terms of defunding is nonsense. We need to support them. They're one of the primary reasons, this is the third safest city in the United States. That's not an accident. We need to hold that in our heart. The last one is flooding. 14 neighborhoods are impacted directly, and my stance would be that's the first thing that we have to address as a city. Sea level rise and all of those other issues are important, but that's going to take a regional response together with the military. There are a number of other issues, but I think those three on the plate are enough to address.
Those are certainly high priorities, particularly with the COVID pandemic.
Exactly.
It's pretty much decimated Commonwealth and municipality budgets. As a council member, you've always got to make the tough choices, and obviously there's not a deep purse there. As a city councilman, you could either raise fees or taxes or cut and freeze. What do you think moving forward the council should do to adapt to the COVID pandemic budget situation?
I think first and foremost, we need to listen clearly to the new city manager as they evaluate the budget and evaluate exactly where we are. My understanding, I don't know all the details, revenues are down, but they're not down as much as was anticipated, both here and on the state level as well. My understanding in terms of national politics, there's a strong effort to reach out and see if it's not possible to help out municipalities to get through this short-term logjam. Like I said, the pandemic is probably going to continue for 15 to 18 months, so any economic downfall is going to be with us for a while. We're really fortunate that our hotel industry, which is heavily impacted, um, it's the most it's the busiest hotel industry, tourist industry on the East Coast. That we are doing something right, they're doing something right. Um, their income is down, but not as much, again, as they anticipated. I think going forward, the last thing I would look at is raising taxes or raising fees. Um, in an economic downturn time, it's not the right time to be able to do that or go ahead with that. I think the first stance probably is freeze, and at least in those areas where it's possible to do that. Our police force is down 75 or 84 people. I'm not sure if we can allow that to continue, so that public safety, should be an area where we're not looking at a freeze to save money in that particular area. But I think it's fair to look at all of the departments and say, wherever it is possible to do some cutting, let's get together and do something like that. And if there are new major expenditures, let's put them off for 3 or 4 months or 6 months until we're back on our feet again.
Bill, you talked earlier about the impact on small businesses.
Yes.
Small businesses are the lifeline of any community.
Yeah.
It's going to take quite some time to get them up and running. You mentioned we're blessed to have a great hotel industry, but when you talk to a lot of the supply chain, a lot of the restaurants, they're hurting still.
Yeah.
They can't hire employees and they can't maneuver. How do you think the city has reacted to that, and what type of programs are you seeing as successful?
I think it's really difficult to react positively. The paper today talked about 40 food establishments since July or June that have raised up in the community. But if you look at them, most of them are walk-in, walk-out type of establishments, or establishments that have been able to develop an outside eating place. Long-term, that's not going to be the answer. When the weather gets colder, that business pretty much shuts down. It's difficult to get them up off the ground as long as we have this social distancing and as long as we're limited in terms of the number of people who can use that space. It doesn't make sense to start a business that can't survive because patrons can't use that business. At the same time, I think we really need to sit down as council together with the business community and develop almost a Marshall Plan to be able to respond as soon as this virus moves out of the way and business can be started. If you've got 600 that have gone down, you've got a tremendous hole in our economy that needs to be filled. And once the virus is out of the way, they'll probably thrive and do well. So I'd like to be ready to have grants, to have low-cost loans, to do whatever is possible to get it up off the ground as quickly as possible, identify those entrepreneurs, assist them in developing business plans, which they're going to need initially. We could be in the business of incubators, establishing incubators, use empty storefronts in the short term to enable the people to get up quickly into business and then move out into the public sector and continue with that. Likewise, I'd like to partner with the business leaders in the community to see if they can't mentor these new entrepreneurs who are trying to get off the ground. With 600 businesses gone, you've got a lot of experienced people out there who want to go into business for themselves, have probably proven that they can, and the only thing that's gotten in their way is this virus that just drives the patrons away. Could be an exciting time.
Absolutely. I think our citizens are can be excited about your connectivity and wanting to connect the community and businesses. I remember being on council for a long time, and there was always a perception with regards to the oceanfront is the king, and all the rest of the districts seem to get the crumbs. How do you change that perception, and how do you integrate some of the economic development strategies that the city put forth, especially with COVID?
Sure. The small businesses that are going out of business, that's happening in Kempsville, that's happening all around the city. there's an impact on the ocean front, but that's not the only place where it's taking place. And we really have to keep that in mind. Um, I think that in the local communities that are impacted, to the extent that the business leaders in those communities participate, it's going to be much easier to get a response. I think it's possible to coalesce and pull together the whole of the community, and we should celebrate publicly when new businesses rise out of the ground in response to the post-pandemic period, and create some excitement around there. I think that will encourage more people to begin to do business. The oceanfront tourist industry is 1/3 of the tax leg for Virginia Beach. That's why it gets the attention that it does. It really helps us to keep our tax rate as low as possible. But you're correct. It can't be correct. It can't be the only place that emphasis is given. And wherever the need exists, council has to be very careful to respond to that. I think as a council person from Kempsville, and likewise with other council people from other areas in the city, we've got a responsibility to keep an eye on our community and our district and make sure that attention is given there as much as other parts of the city.
Bill, I see that you've got a number of strong organizations supporting you. Haven't been a former elected official, I know the value of those things, but what can be said about endorsements from like the Education Association or the Police Benevolent Association, or maybe even a political party? What are the importance of those endorsements, and why should people go out and vote?
In this election, this is a different campaign than anything I've been in or seen in the past. There's not a whole lot of door knocking. There are no forums. And so it sometimes is very difficult for people to see where you stand and what you believe in. I believe these endorsements are critical. Because what it says to people, here are trusted groups of people like the teachers in Virginia Beach who have looked at candidates and have given me the endorsement, which says that we support your stance. It also says there's an open door of communication between the two of us, you know, kind of back and forth. And it says something about my stance in support of education in Virginia Beach, one of the great education systems in the country, not just the city or the state. Likewise with the firefighters, great group. Don't get acknowledged generally unless there's a problem. You know, when there's a need, everybody wants them to be around. When there's not a need, they're kind of forgotten in their stations, but they're some of the busiest people in the city. It's not just fires, but any kind of personal emergency, they're the first on the scene. And again, their trust and their support is something I appreciate. The police endorsement, probably one of the most important endorsements to get in the city, particularly in this time when the police are under so much fire. I've been very supportive of them throughout my time living in the beach. I believe they recognize that. I continue to support them, and their support is, I think, kind of a payback for that support and a recognition that that our ongoing relationship is a positive one, and that I'm not going to do anything to harm the police force that we have in Virginia Beach.
Bill, where do you see some of the successes that the city council has implemented and some areas for improvement? And you as a
Well,
council member, how can you help push those forward?
I think overall this city has done extremely well, and I give credit to council overall for the direction that it has taken the city. Um, I think our response to um, something like Come to the Water, which could have been a real difficult situation. Pharrell comes in, puts something down. It really puts Virginia Beach on the map. I think gives everyone a sense of pride. Um, and I think it was a textbook case of how the city and private people can work together to create a great experience that brings people from the outside, but also allows people within the community to get invested in it and to profit from it at times. And that's probably the way that we should be working forward in all of our endeavors. I believe the education system that we have in the beach, everybody can take credit for it. It takes a lot of work to put that together, and the accolades that we have received from around the country, I think, bespeak the strength of the people who live here are a real credit to the teachers and that administration, but also everyone in the community that supports them. This is a great place to do business. The Mara cable coming in and the way the city was able to bring in that operation could easily make this a technology center in the East Coast, with nonstop high-speed cable going from the United States to Europe. It's an invitation for others to come into the area, and that kind of development is only going to be good for the city.
Where do you see some of the Bill Dale initiatives as a council member? Obviously, you're one of 11, but what initiatives would you like to push forward if you're elected in November?
The first thing that I'd be concerned about is doing whatever is possible to ensure that council works together. If we appear to be divided and there appears to be divisiveness, I think it not only hurts us, but it hurts the whole city. I think you have to be realistic and say presently the city is fairly divided on any number of issues. And to the extent that we're able to reach common ground with everybody seeing that they've won, everybody becoming a winner, I think that spills over and becomes a great thing for the whole of the city. I think keeping the virus on top as a major issue and a major point of focus is going to touch the lives of people in the community and say that leadership is concerned about something that's touching their lives, and continues to do so. If we can dispel some of the negative comments about our police department and about policing, and point out those areas and places where we can really take pride in the work that they continue to do, again, I think that gives a perspective, a wider perspective of something that's really positive that is happening here. There's a lot to be proud of in the city of Virginia Beach, and sometimes you have to be the cheerleader that points it out and says, even though there are difficulties and challenges, there's a lot more that we can count on, and there's plenty of reasons to stay in this city and help it to grow.
With regards to Virginia Beach, you talked about cohesion and unity. Council needs to have that, more of it.
Yeah.
So does our region. Where do you think the city of Virginia Beach could play a bigger role with regards to regionalism in coastal Virginia?
I think regionalism is extremely important. Right now, our region is like a Zoom screen. You can see everybody on the screen, but it only takes a click to take the video off, take the sound off, and stop speaking to each other. For far too long, we have been divided, we've been insulated, and sometimes have been divisive in terms of the way we react to each other. I think people on the outside, particularly businesses on the outside, look at that as a very negative part of what the beach is about. To the extent that we can work together, I believe everyone can win. I think we can reduce costs, we can provide better services. People who live in Virginia Beach work in these other communities, Suffolk and Portsmouth and Norfolk, and they drive back and forth. And I think many people would be hard pressed to be able to point and say, this is the line that divides one city from the other. We probably should learn from that. Councils should learn from that. The city of Virginia Beach does a retreat every year to develop, maybe every year or every other year, there should be a retreat for all of the council people in the region to sit down and see if it's possible to talk to each other, more importantly, to listen to each other, and to see if it's not possible to point to some areas where we might be able to work more closely together.
Bill, I'm glad you said that. I remember being a council member at the age of 32, my first term at large, and I proposed just that idea.
Yeah.
But I remember it was a heavy lift because a lot of council members didn't want to know each other or communicate.
Right.
But you're so right about communication, especially in this day and age when you can have Zoom and
Sure.
a lot of the laws are more relaxed with regards to meeting and congregating. I want to.
And you're as aware as I am, we face the same issues as these other communities face.
Mhm.
Many of the same issues. The solutions are probably the same, but it might be possible that one of the other regions has a solution that we could adopt here. And talking together might allow us to reach accommodation and a solution much more quickly and much more easily.
Bill, I'm going to, in this next segment, our last segment, we're going to talk about some grab bag issues that
Good.
people know about, and maybe you could offer, a glimpse of where you're headed with them.
Fine.
Obviously, open space is tremendous in Virginia Beach, and we have several key parcels. Rudy Loop is one. What would you do with that?
Boy, that's a tough call. I use Rudy Loop a lot. I mean, I go down there to park to get together with my grandchildren and
Yeah.
hit the beach there. I'd like to see it open space. Would really love to see a park or someplace down in that area. I know when you get to the beach itself, there there's a great recreational area that's used an awful lot, but we don't see a whole lot of green that is there. Um, I'm not sure if I'd like to see another large building with parking and whatever else, commercial type building. Um, I could probably be changed, but I still at this point would like to see it remain something that's a little greener, a congregating space for people who live in that area.
It's amazing that you say that. A lot of people are saying that. I remember when I was on council, people were debating the 31st Street Park
That's
parcel.
right.
It was
Exactly.
it was the same argument. But the council that preceded me voted for the development.
Yeah.
What it did to transform the oceanfront was incredible.
Oh, and
But
you're correct.
like you said, that's going to be a tough call for Rudy Loop. The beauty of that place versus the economic highest level you could use with that.
Yeah.
SWAM, small women and minority businesses. The city's done a tremendous amount with regards
Yes.
to disparity study. I was one of the guys that originally kicked that off.
That's right.
We've seen a lot of improvement, but we have a ways to go. Where do you see the city headed with that?
When I talk about a Marshall Plan of some sort to kickstart and get small businesses up off the ground and running, I think that's an integral part of it and should be an integral part of it. I think the first step might be to seek out those entrepreneurs in the community who might have lost businesses, because of this, and see if they might not be interested in getting back into the game again. Generally, people who have that kind of drive are going to continue to have that, and sometimes failure breeds further success. I think that's a stance the city has to take. I would really call upon economic development to make that a focus when they talk about and when they move to encouraging and starting small businesses within the community. It can only benefit all of us. Doesn't have to be only at the oceanfront, can be everywhere in the beach. But to the extent that we're able to get that off the ground, I think the whole community benefits.
You mentioned the Economic Development Authority. A lot of folks, that's a misunderstood organization. I mean, it has its benefits, it has its doubters for sure. How can you increase transparency on the Development Authority with regards to citizens?
I think some of it is difficult. When you're talking about large businesses thinking of coming into the area, there's a certain amount of secrecy that those businesses demand when they're into discussions. I mean, people in business know that and are aware of that. And so transparency is not the issue so much as protecting those conversations and allowing them to grow and come into fruition. It's a two-edged sword, and I'm not sure how you cut through it. Certainly transparency is a major concern. Whether it's reporting on a regular basis that we're in 6 conversations now, we can't say with who, but there's possibility for this coming on board or taking place. I think some of those discussions, the nature of the discussion has to remain private, and you can explain that to people. Those who know about business and how it works aren't going to have a problem with it. Those who are unaware of business and want to have something to say about everything probably going to have greater difficulty with it. I think you put responsible people on that commission, people that you can trust, and people that the community can trust, and then you have to trust them.
And Bill, I believe the citizens can trust you, being over several decades as a priest and a financial advisor. People do trust you, that's for sure.
I'm fortunate, and I appreciate it immensely.
Bill, we're going to wrap this up, but we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Again, you want to make a final pitch to the voters and why they should elect you this November as the Kempsville City Council member. And keep in mind, in the city of Virginia Beach, you can vote for everyone.
Everyone you want.
Yeah.
I would start off by saying that I've looked at all the candidates. There are great candidates running in every position for every office. And that needs to be said. And it takes a lot of work to do that. I believe that I can serve the community of Kempsville well, and I can serve the community of Virginia Beach well, in large part because of the experience that I bring to this, my knowledge of the issues that have taken place. I can speak, but more importantly, I can listen. My mind is not firmly fixed, so that I would certainly be listening to you, and I can change and will change if the argument is strong enough. I ask for your support. I ask for your criticisms, and I ask for the accolades if they are coming. And I promise that I will give, all of my efforts and my time to serve you well. I ask for your vote today and the coming weeks up until November the 3rd.
Bill Dale, we were honored to have you here to answer questions for the Coastal Virginia Chamber of Commerce and the citizens of Virginia Beach. We wish you success in your endeavors. May the force be with you. Take care.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great day.
Take care.